Alright, I feel like the lighting is going to change a lot, probably. So if it does, I apologize. It's just kind of cloudy today, so super bright and then super dark. Hello, how are you? Welcome back if you've been here before, or hello if you're new. My name is Rachel. Today we're chatting about plants, so if you don't like plants very much, this video is not for you. There are lots of different topics on my channel. I've also expanded on this video and I've included links and photos and all other kinds of things in a blog post which I put together on my personal blog, which is www.rachelost.me. That blog is hosted by Squarespace, who is today's video sponsor. So I did want to say a little thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. And I wanted to actually put together a list of tips which I wish I knew sooner. So this will be very beneficial for you if you're someone who's just started collecting, or you've got a few and you're not really fully confident with what you're doing with them yet. You are the person that I made this video for. Alright, different types of plants are going to have different individual care tips as to what they specifically need. But what I wanted to cover is just general care, things which would have made my life easier if I knew them earlier. I don't even know how many plants I have anymore. We passed the 100 mark and I stopped counting. In the last 3 months, I've only bought one plant. My existing ones are just taking over the whole house. When it comes to caring for them, I tend to have a less is more sort of approach. I don't like to overcare, I don't like to overwater. I remember that plants are pretty self-sufficient. They grow in nature on their own with nobody's help. You just need to make sure that they have the basic ingredients that they need and then let them take care of themselves. Okay, firstly, let's talk about cuttings, because obviously taking cuttings is a great way to end up with more plants in your house. More than you know what to do with. So if you take a cutting, you can propagate the plants that you love. Now, when I used to take cuttings, I would just take a snip, throw it in some water. I mean, you can, but you risk rotting the plant itself. When you take a cutting, you need to make sure that firstly, what you're using to take the cutting with is sterile, so it doesn't have other bacteria and debris and things on it. And secondly, before we place the cutting in our preferred medium, so obviously you don't need to propagate just in water. You can use water, you can use perlite, you can use sphagnum moss, whatever you like to do. I still like water, I find it's easy. You want to let the cutting callus over, so take something clean to make the cutting. Once you've made the cutting, leave it out on the bench, let it callus over. I recently took a cutting of one of my Thai constellations so I can gift it to a friend. I took that cutting and I just left it to sit out on the bench for about half a day. The plant will not die if it doesn't go into water straight away. So I left it out to callus. Another thing that you could do is also place some Ceylon cinnamon on the end of the cutting. So that way when you put it in water, the stem of the plant won't rot. While we're on the topic of cinnamon, if you've seen some of my other videos, you know that I do this. I like to take true cinnamon, Ceylon cinnamon, and sprinkle it on the soil of my plants. This helps prevent gnats. If you buy a plant from a big chain nursery, sooner or later you're going to get a plant that has a gnat infestation in the soil. It just happens. So many of these places have really thick potting mixes that don't breathe very well, and gnats like to breed in them because they hold a lot of water. So what I like to do is make sure that, all the plants have nice breathable chunky soil. I definitely prefer a more chunky mix. I'll talk about that later in the video. But we want to make sure that the soil isn't consistently damp because we don't want gnats to be able to breed in them. Now obviously there's heaps of different chemicals and products you can buy for this, but a very simple trick is just to get some Ceylon cinnamon and sprinkle it on the top layer of soil. You can even mix it through the top layer of soil if you want to. What this will do is it will help dry out that top portion of soil, particularly if it's a very large plant. You got to think the more soil there is, the longer it's going to take for that water to dry. And once you put that cinnamon on the soil, it will help stop the fungus forming, which will deter gnats from breeding in it. Because while we might want a house full of plants, we don't want a house full of bugs. Another thing that I wish I knew much sooner, which would have changed how I liked to position plants in my house, is there's no such thing as plants that love low light. It's a term that gets thrown around a lot. I feel like I've probably used it myself. There's plants that can tolerate low light, absolutely. But do they thrive in it? And while I know it's easy to be like, oh, but there's plants that live in rainforests and it can be super dark at the bottom levels of the rainforest, I feel like rainforest dark is a little bit different to your bathroom, which has a window this big dark. It's not the same kind of light. It's not the same kind of environment. Now, if you order a plant, whether it's just like an online plant store, or if you like buy it off someone in a Facebook group or do a swap or whatever it might be, or even eBay, a lot of times to save on postage and to help stop making a mess of the whole package, a lot of places will send plants bare rooted. Plant stores not so much, but other places yes. If the plant's in soil, just leave it, don't repot it straight away. If the plant has been sent to you bare rooted, pop it in some water, and you could put like a tiny bit of like seaweed solution or sea salt in the water as well, but you don't have to. You can just put it in some water and leave it for like 3-4 days. Just don't even touch it. If it looks fine and looks healthy, just put it in the water and just leave it alone, because we want to let it like prop back up, settle in a little bit, and then plant it up. When plants are posted, they can go through a bit of transit shock. This can help minimize that. While we're talking about getting new plants, I cannot stress this one enough. When you get a new plant, quarantine it. Don't just put it in with all your other stuff, or bad things can happen. I'm not saying they will, I'm just saying they can. So a while ago now, this was not anytime recently, I bought a plant from a nursery that I had been to a whole bunch of times. And you know, their stuff had never worked out badly for me before, and I got a new plant and I brought it home. And a couple of weeks later, I noticed some fine webbing. And I noticed that the plant, obviously, you know, it wasn't there when I got it, because when I got it home, all the leaves looked totally fine. There was nothing odd about it. But then after a couple of weeks, they had hatched from their eggs. They had started messing the plant up. There were spider mites. And of course, they spread to other plants as well. So, you know, for the longest time now, if I do get something new, I put it in an area where there's no other plants close to it, so that if something does emerge from the soil, because you got to remember these bugs have different life cycles, so if something hatches from the soil, you don't want it spreading to the rest of your plants, because imagine trying to treat all of them at once, especially if you have a lot. It's just a nightmare, really. Learn from my mistake, and when you get something new, just put it in a spot where if something does hatch from it, can't get to anyone else. Now, when we're talking about actually planting things up, I personally have found that creating a soil blend is the key to a happy plant life. So I have a few little containers of different types of soil, which I'm sure you guys have seen me like pull out before when I'm like repotting in vlogs and things like that. I have an arid soil mix, which I bought from It Planté. I have some standard potting soil, I have moss, I have orchid bark, I have perlite. I think I have a few other little bits and pieces in the outdoor cabinet, like some charcoal and things like that. I don't use them as frequently. It's more just the ones that I listed before, which I use quite often. Your plant needs to be able to drain. That's a really big factor for it being happy in your home environment, is having soil where it doesn't get waterlogged. I tend to get a fair few DMs from people sending me photos of their plants and asking like what's wrong with them. I'm no expert, like this is just a fun hobby for me, and it's something that I've enjoyed for a long time. In all honesty, I'm not the best person to be messaging for that kind of advice. But something that I do see a lot is a lot of people's plants have root rot, and the easiest way to make sure that doesn't happen is to have a chunkier soil mix. Obviously this is going to depend on the type of plant that you're having. I have a lot of monsteras and philodendrons and epiprenum and that sort of thing. If you're someone who loves just owning heaps of cacti, this advice won't apply to you, because they need a more sandy, even drier soil mix. Sorry, this light is annoying me so much. It's changing a lot and I keep having to change the aperture on my camera. But what I was going to say is if you don't want to get all those different kinds of soils, you don't have to. Honestly, just start with two, please for me, an organic potting mix and perlite. You can pick up a big bag of perlite for really, really cheap, and then just mix that through the soil. That will help aerate it, and it will also help the plant grow bigger and stronger roots. That's what you want, because if you've got a really good solid root system, you're gonna get an awesome plant. Next, I want to show you the hairpin trick. I have shown this in another video, and it's a great way to take what is otherwise like a thin and small plant and turn it into something that looks a lot better. So things like your pothos, your adansonii, heartleaf philodendron, all of those, this will work great for. What we can do is actually encourage those nodes to dive through in the soil and grow us a more thicker looking plants. So rather than just having like one vine hanging out of a pot, what we can actually do is circle the plant around itself. Use a hairpin, which we want to make sure you pull it apart. You don't want it too tight. If it's too tight, it's going to essentially strangle the plant and you're going to lose that vine. So just make sure you pull it apart with your fingers a little bit to give it some space, particularly at that top loop section, and then just drive that into the soil over the plant to encourage the node to dive down. Now I want you to consider all the greenery around your home as little solar panels. And what happens to solar panels if they get super dusty and dirty? They're not going to be as effective. So I really encourage you to clean your plant's leaves. I like to alternate between just using a cloth with some water, and then other times I will use a white oil and a cloth, because I find the white oil gives the plant leaves a really beautiful sheen and everything looks super glossy and healthy. Another one you could use is neem oil. Both white oil and neem oil are pesticides, and neem oil is also a fungicide as well. So if you do clean the plant leaves with them, you're being preventative. By cleaning the leaves, you're giving the plant more opportunity to use more sunlight, and therefore it will grow more efficiently. So this is going to be really important, especially if you live somewhere that doesn't have lots of big window space. You want to make sure that you're maximizing all of the light that you do get. And finally, I don't know why I didn't know this one sooner, but I only learned this like a year and a half ago. I don't know, do I live under a rock? Perhaps. But when a plant is developing a new leaf, make sure it gets more water. They use more water when they're actually putting out new growth. So if you see a plant putting out a bunch of leaves, check the soil. The soil will probably be drier much faster than usual. I used to have a set watering day where like every Saturday or every Sunday I would just go around and water everything. But what I do now is every second day, because there's a lot of plants. So every second day I go around and check the soil of every plant. And I have my watering can with me obviously as well. If it's dry, I water it. If the soil's still damp, I just leave it. But if you can start to get in that kind of pattern where every couple of days you're just checking the soil of your plants and use a moisture meter, or just use your finger and put that in the soil, you'll start to notice patterns between which plants are super thirsty and which plants are not. And their water requirements will of course change between winter and summer. I feel like the plant that is most important for is alocasias. I used to always kill alocasias, but we've not had any casualties in a long time because I just give them extra water when they're putting out a new leaf. That's it, that's the only thing I changed with them. Let's keep the mood on today's video light, shall we? I don't know about you guys, but I always love having a bit of a laugh in the comment section. What is the worst, like funniest mistake you have made with one of your plants? I'll tell you I'm so embarrassed by this, by the way. It would have been like 5 years ago, I think, and I don't think back then I had ever used sphagnum moss before, but I ordered a plant online and they sent it bare rooted. But when they sent it bare rooted, they wrapped it in sphagnum moss because that's how you keep some moisture around the root system of the plant while it's in the post. You know what I did? I got the plant and I straight away planted it in soil with the moss still wrapped around the root system. If you know, you know, like that was dumb. That was so dumb. I just thought like this moss, I was like, oh, does it have to stay on the roots? Like, I didn't know, and I just planted it straight away. It died. Are we surprised? Maybe not, because the moss just retained too much moisture around the roots, and it was like in a ball of moss and then in just plain soil. We're past those days, thankfully. But please tell me. I'd love to know the funny things that you guys have done as well, because I feel like a lot of plant care stuff is really just trial and error, and you can make a lot of errors. I hope there was at least one of these that you didn't know before. But this is, honestly, this is stuff that I learned over time and by spending time in like Facebook groups and things, and I just wish I knew them all at the start, because it would have made things a lot easier. If you want some more advice and things, I do have other videos as well, so feel free to check them out. I did also put together a blog post for this video, so if you wanted to jump over to rachelost.me, you can find it over there. I do have a few other plant things on there too. And again, I wanted to say thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video. So I use Squarespace to host not only my personal journal, which is the one that I've linked today, but also my health and fitness blog, which is eatrunlift.me. So I've been using them for a long time now, and the reason is because it is so simple. I like to take the fuss out of the things that I do so that I can focus on what's really important and actually get the work done rather than being bogged down in all the behind the scenes. You can choose from gorgeous templates, or you can take their templates, customize your own. They've also got amazing built-in integrations so that the back end of your business or your blog or whatever it is you're putting on your Squarespace site can run seamlessly. They also have a fantastic set of blogging tools, which is why I decided to set up with them in the first place, because I hated how complicated my old platform was. And I love that when I want to put together a new post on Squarespace, I can drag and drop elements, I can put them wherever I want them. It's got great built-in SEO features, or even if you want to, you can just duplicate a previous post if you're someone who likes keeping things in a similar format like I do. If you've been thinking about setting something up, I'm going to give you the advice that I give all my friends and say, just do it, just get started. And you can head to squarespace.com and sign up for a free trial. And then when you're ready to set your website live, head to the URL that I've put on the screen and in the description box, and you can get 10% off your first purchase. But thank you guys for hanging out with me and letting me rant at you about plants for however long it's been. I feel like I've been talking for a while now. But as you know, there's something I enjoy. They bring a lot of calmness into my space, into my life. They've helped me learn to like switch off more, because when your hands are covered in soil, you can't really be doing anything else. But I hope you're well. If you haven't already, let's be friends on Instagram. My username is just @rachelost, same as it is on here, and I'll catch you guys either over there or on my next upload. Bye!